My name is Arif Ajakia. I am a human rights activist. Vivek ji, first of all, thank you very much for making this film, for bringing the facts out. My question is that there's a very powerful scene in your film. Either convert, leave, or go. Didn't we see the same scene in Kerala? A young boy shouting the same things to Christians and Hindus? What do you see in Kerala? Do you see any parallel between Kashmir and Kerala?
I recently met Indonesian ambassador in India. And he was telling me though we are a Islamic country, but we follow Hindu culture. Anybody who has been to Indonesia would know that. They still have Ramayana playing for last, I think, 30, 40 years, non-stop. Similarly, if you go towards up to Iran, Iraq, you will find there are lots of practices and rituals which you will find the imprints of that there also. So our cultural imprint has been very large, starting from Iran, Iraq, up to Indonesia. Even in Japan and everywhere, what you see, Zen has actually Buddhist Dhyan. So Dhyan, the concept, is a Hindu concept which went there. So Hindu culture, the civilizational or cultural imprint was huge and large. But today, you see, it's been reduced to a smaller geographical region. And something which I want to point out, you guys may not have noticed, that until 1520 up to 2000, in media and everywhere, they used to write Indian subcontinent. Now they don't. And we don't even know. So like slow poison, you keep changing definitions, words, and we don't care about them. Similarly, our cultural imprint is also shrinking. And how it's shrinking? The Kerala, I was in Kerala very recently, some time back. In Mopla, in Malabar region, there was a genocide. Okay, and that genocide began because of Khilafat. In 1920, Khilafat movement came to India. In 21, that was the first genocide because of Khilafat. After that, Direct Action Day, and then so on and so on. You know all that. But in textbooks were changed somewhere in 70s or something, and the people actually who committed genocide, it changed to freedom fighters. They became freedom fighters. And they said, no, they were fighting for India's freedom. And that's why they killed those people. But then the question arises that why only Hindus and why not Christians or anybody else? So when history is changing according to a political narrative, at that time it's very, very important for us to stand up. So when I wrote Urban Nexus, the whole theme was that there is a nexus between communists and terrorists of whatever kind. I'm not saying from Pakistan, on the western side, the green terrorism, and from China's side, left red terrorism. Because we are the only country where for last 50 years, Naxal movement has been going on, where people with guns are allowed to move around freely, and they kill our soldiers all the times. And they have got an ideological and kind of a political shield. And the same thing is happening in Kerala also. You saw that child, you saw the video, what is that child saying? Same thing, he's saying if you have to live here, you have to listen to us and follow our faith, otherwise we'll kill you and cut you like vegetables. That's exactly, I think, is the gist of the whole thing. Now, everybody sees it, we get angry for a couple of minutes, and then we forget, and then we move on. And everybody, the people who are hardcore, people who want to damage you, destroy you, disintegrate you, whether in India or in Britain or anywhere in the world, they understand this psychology very well. And that's why you need artists in this world to tell stories. And that's what I'm trying to do. Perhaps after 1.5 years, when my next film comes, maybe this Kerala will find an important place in that film.
Hello, my name is Nitin Mehta. I'm the founder of the Indian Vegetarian Society. At this point, I would like to say and ask that what was the rest of India doing when this genocide was going on? is it not now the time for rest of the India and the Hindu population and the politicians at the time to say sorry to the Kashmiris that we were cowards and we let you down? Whether they were Hindu organizations, Hindu politicians, or whoever, it is time for us to say we let you down and accept that we were cowards at the time and that we will never ever let this cowardice happen again. What do you think about that?
See, I don't know what happened in the past. All of us know what happened in the past. But I can only talk about the present. And thank God, in present, it's not happening. So everybody is rising up. Like Pallavi was saying, there's a line in the film that please go and tell this to everybody in India and see how India will get united to come in our support. I think that's exactly what is happening. I don't think any Kashmiri Hindu can complain today that other people are not looking at them with empathy and they're not understanding their pain. See, politicians, that's their job, right? So I'm not going to blame them. The only people who are to be blamed are the people who gave them that power, to commit a mistake and get away with it. And elections after elections. But you have somebody, this is the first time, trust me, and I never mince my words, I always speak the truth. This is the first time I have seen that an entire community is not saying that we support you, instead they are saying we love you. So it's a great sign. When people start talking in terms of I love you, which is, I think, a great achievement. You must have done great work. That's why you are getting those compliments.
Hello, Vivek ji. My name is Gurvinder Singh, and I met you in 2019, and I sit here very proud to watch your film, and I congratulate you. And can I just say, people like Pamela Chopra, who slated the film, they must be having egg on their face at this present moment. But that apart, can I just ask you, in terms of the Nehru family and the Gandhi family, and it's very ironic we're sitting in the Nehru Center here, how being Kashmiri Pandits, they themselves let your community down. I just wanted your views on that, please.
That's for a politician to answer. I don't know. Hello.
Doesn't talk politics.
Okay, so I can talk for my film. I can't talk for Nehru family, but Amishi can answer.
Are you crazy?
No. You can't talk politics. Hello.
Yeah, it's okay.
And she reminded me I was told not to discuss politics. See, I'm not of the view that somebody is absolutely wrong. In certain times, today what we are doing, we don't know what is going to happen 50 years later. But only one thing I know, that always stand up for your own people. That's it.
Hi, thank you for coming and sharing the movie with us. My name is Padma. I'm from South India, and you just mentioned earlier that you worked with a lady in the communication department and that she didn't know the storyline of India. I also grew up in South India, studied in South India. I'm also a Brahmin, and I come from a Vedic family, from a very well-known Vedic family. My question is, why are we not taught this in schools and colleges? I know British history very well, but I don't know my Indian history. So why are we not taught this as part of our history? I mean, this is for both sides. Thank you.
So you can hear me. That's not working. It's okay. See, education. I'll tell you why. Education today, the modern education, is also a narrative tool. Right? Who are the people? I really loved him. He told me something which made a big impression on my mind. He said, never ever look at the people who are in the front. See who are the people backstage, who are doing research, who are drafting policies. So education is not the professor or teacher who's teaching or the textbook which a child is bringing. It's the people backstage who are manipulating it and maneuvering it, you know. So, as far as India, I don't know about the world, but the whole world is suffering from that. The modern education actually has nothing to do with the education. Modern education basically is an attempt to dull your mind like drugs do. It is to create more and more workforce which is dull and obedient. That is the purpose of modern education. And to make profits out of that so that you, when you come out, you become a nice, obedient workforce. No education system in the world makes free thinkers. The two most important things the three most important things in the world, in life, are how to live, how to love, and how to create. And these are the three things no school in the world teaches you. So you understand, that is the problem with the education system. Having said that, it's very easy now for the private individuals or the corporations who are running modern schools, colleges, and universities, and the politicians and the administrators, because they create these textbooks. Especially in the case of India in 1970s, this is well recorded and authenticated information. When our Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ji had a problem with the majority, at that time she negotiated with the communists, and communists bartered, and they said, okay, give us education and culture. These two things. And they took it over. And since then, a lot of history was changed and manipulated. By history, I do not mean glorify somebody, but at least a country should be told, the young generation should be told about the great heritage and the knowledge system. People don't even know about that. People don't know how great knowledge system we have created. A lot of other societies have also done that. And that's why you find the self-esteem is low, was low until few years ago in the younger generations. And at the time when India was enslaved, at that time when there was no connection between our great heritage and the education system, at that time there was a Vivekananda who was full of pride. And he went all over the world and he sent these great messages. And he said, give me 100 young people and I'll change the face of entire Hindu civilization. Sadly, he could not get those 100 people. Why? Because it was a defeated society. And when, have you seen, all of you must have children, when a child is born, you see how a child behaves. He's not scared of anyone. A child goes, breaks things, topples things, goes in a dark room, goes in jungles. Child is never scared. A child is born with lot of courage and lot of guts and, but then slowly we teach a child, how to be scared. And therefore we have created, so in Indian context, we have created a society of young people who have no connect with the history and they have no pride. And they say, okay, let's get out of here as soon as possible. And then parents also contribute so wonderfully by having an aspiration, मेरा बच्चा तो कॉन्वेंट में ही जाना चाहिए. और जब वो बच्चा आके अंग्रेजी बोलता है घर में तो कितने माँ बाप खुश होते हैं, वीडियो बना बना के सबको भेजते हैं, they send those videos out. देखो मेरा बच्चा अंग्रेजी बोल रहा है. Okay, so it's our duty also to tell children stories, okay, teach them to read, read great books. That's what I think.
My name is Hirdesh Gupta. मैं एक कम्युनिटी ग्रुप चलाता हूँ यहाँ पे कॉल्ड इंडियन डायस्पोरा इन यूके एंड आई ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ रीच इंडिया को टीम मेंबर. मेरा क्वेश्चन है, द क्वेश्चन इज रिगार्डिंग कश्मीर itself. You mentioned that the movie was not released in Kashmir because there were no theater. So did you got a chance to get the reaction of the Kashmiri Muslim there? What was their feedback on this movie? Thank you.
Yeah. मैं आपको पढ़ के भी सुना सकता हूँ, मैं ढूंढना पड़ेगा, मेरे पास बहुत सारे, so many, not one, you'll be surprised, hundreds and hundreds of DMs, though I don't like it, but they have seen pirated copies. But in Kashmir, that's how it works. It's not that Kashmir did not have cinema halls. Kashmir had wonderful cinema halls. Anybody who's from Kashmir would know that. In fact, a lot of tourists who used to go there, they would go and watch a movie in cinema halls. But then during 80s, those cinema halls were shut down, burnt. Then in 1996, somebody opened the cinema hall, but I think the first day or after a couple of days, then they went inside and they shot everybody. Day before, Kashmiri actress, she was shot. Huh? No, she used to work for Kashmir Doordarshan. She was an actress. She was shot just 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I've written a lot about her, and because she was an actress. There was a beautiful girl who came to act in, she acted in one of Amir Khan's films, very famous films, and she became a very famous actress also. Then she was also threatened and she had to quit acting, and she went back and she apologized to the entire community for acting. You know, and that's why a place which was so rich, the entire Shaivism came from there. The concept of Saraswati. Saraswati, in one hand, she has veena, which is a musical instrument, and it's like she's full of metaphors, you know, such a beautiful, creative imagery of Saraswati. She comes from Kashmir. Okay, Panchtantra was written in Kashmir. Natya Shastra, which is drama, the entire science of drama was written over there. In that land, in last 30 years, see what terrorism does. In last 30 years, there has been no great poetry, no art, no theater, no cinema, nothing. It's totally dry. The boys who, and Kashmiri Muslim boys create such amazing music, you have to listen to it to believe it. They are one of the best in the world, I'm telling you, on record. But they can't live in Kashmir. They live in Pune. They live in Mumbai, they live in Delhi. They are not even allowed to go back to Kashmir. And a lot of people say that this film is about Hindus and all that. So I just want to tell you, we don't talk about how we work. If you have seen the film, there is like one of the most critical scenes in the film where this boy is taken on a shikara in a frozen Dal Lake to meet Bitta. And you see this, he says, tell me about Kashmir. And this young boy tells him that Kashmir is an animal which every animal wants to eat. Who has written that scene? I have not written that scene. I asked a Kashmiri Muslim boy who lives in Kashmir to write that scene. I called him and I said, you write whatever you want to write. Just describe Kashmir to me. I will put it exactly the way you write without changing a comma or a full stop. And we did that. That's his voice, not my voice. And the boy who acted, who did that role, is also a Kashmiri Muslim boy from Kashmir. One of them wanted to be a writer. And one of them wanted to be an actor. They came to Delhi to write and direct. Then they came to Bombay to write and direct. But then the community said, if you do that, we will kill you. And the parents got scared and they had to go back to Kashmir. After we shot that scene, they called Pallavi and they said, chahe kuch bhi ho jaye, please don't put our name in the credits. This is the scenario of art, literature, and culture. Art is the real conscious, see Shiv and Parvati. Shiv, the consciousness is Parvati. The consciousness of Kashmir is Saraswati. Even in your own house. Most of the art and literature, organically, without even being aware that you are instilling that art and literature and culture in your child, it comes from mothers and grandmothers and all these people. And today in Kashmir, there is no art, there is no literature, no culture. Tell me name of one book, go and research, and tell me one great book which has been written. And what made me really happy, and this is something which I'll tell you, you won't even believe it. New York Times and all BBC, they will never understand what I'm telling you. When our film came, there was a lot of art being created around it. Lot of people created different kinds of art. Somebody wrote poetry, somebody did sketches, and somebody did a whole lot of things, you know. And I started calling it genocide art, and I would share everything. And one day, I received a beautiful image of Shiva somewhere on Instagram. And I saw the name, it was a Muslim guy, Sarfaraz. So I shared it on Twitter. Instantly, I received a message. It's still there on my direct message. And he said, "Sir, please, you do not share it. Otherwise, I'll have a problem." Then I started talking. I said, "Why? But you made Shiva. I didn't even notice that your name is Sarfraz. I just, you know, how it happens on social media. You see something, you share it. I didn't even realize. And only after he sent me a message, I realized his name was Sarfraz." He said, "Sir, I just did it to say sorry to my Hindu brothers. I am a Kashmiri Muslim boy. And I did not even know before your film that Shiva came from Kashmir. So as a tribute to my Hindu friends, I made this sketch, but please, you do not share it, otherwise I will be killed or I will be threatened." I immediately went back and deleted it. So it's not that the young boys and girls, they don't want to express themselves. They are not allowed to express themselves. This is the problem with Kashmir.
I have one question for you. First, I should tell you that you are our savior. You are almost like a god and incarnation who has descended.
Please don't
on
say that.
earth.
Please don't. Please
You
don't.
are. You are not
No,
seen
no,
only
no.
our pain.
No,
you
no,
have
I'm not.
seen wounds on our, soul. You have seen those. And on lighter note, I want to ask you: is there any chance you are going to make prequel of Kashmir Files about the Parmi case you were talking about? Because in 70s there was Parmi case. That time also, even my family had migrated from Kashmir to Jammu. So that time also there was exodus. So is there any chance? It's just on a lighter note. Are you going to make one more Kashmir Files on that?
See, I'll tell you what, honestly, what we are trying, I think we should empower lots of young boys and girls so that I am not the only one who's making these films. They also do that. And please encourage your children or your cousins or young boys and girls around you. Ask them to speak up, and through stories, through art, through literature, ask them to do that. Music. Yeah, like you saw this girl. And I must tell you something. This is amazing. This is extraordinary that I met a lot of young, the next generation of Kashmiri Hindus. And most of the children I find are extremely creative. Perhaps this is what genocide does to you, that next generation is very creative. If it wasn't true, then Hollywood wouldn't have been full of Jews. You know, so the entire music industry in Hollywood is full of Jews. And my dream is to see that this generation of Indians, they also contribute a lot to art and music and literature. Last.
Hi, to live, to love, to create. That's your vision of a holistic education. I'm Dr. Priya Vimani, and I've been researching Vedic philosophy and giving talks and workshops in the Gita and our epics around the world for about 2 decades now. Recently, I was in India interacting with very bright, inquisitive minds, about 10 to 13 years old. One little boy asked me, "I've never heard of this book called the Gita." Another child says, "Gita, that's the name of a woman." So what do you have to say about empowering our children and our youth especially with these very powerful tools of navigation, these philosophies to enrich and live our lives about self-management and life management like the Gita, which our children don't even know of, whereas it's unheard of that a Christian child would say, "I've never heard of the Bible," or an Islamic child saying, "Is Quran the name of a person?" I was rather disillusioned by this.
You don't have to be. You just spoke about the greatness of India. I mean, that's the greatness of India, that you don't, in India, very few people read Gita. You don't have to read Gita because it's in your DNA. Why do you have to read it? Okay, just to give you a nice story, because we are ending, so it will really make you feel better. That my father was a Vedic scholar, and he translated all the Vedas from Sanskrit to Hindi, and till his last breath, died when he was 95. He was translating for Gyanpith Atharved. That was the last translation he did. And so everybody used to say that, please take care of yourself. He said, even if Yamraj comes, he can't take me away until I finish the last line. And that's exactly what happened. He finished it and he just died 2 days later. So I'm telling you before we end, a nice story about it. So somebody came to my house and he said, Doc Saab, Pandit ji, kuch अच्छी ज्ञान वाली किताब दीजिए पढ़ने के लिए. So we had a big library. We still have a big library. So he gave him Gita. तो वो ले गए, and he was a clerk somewhere, middle class person. वो लेके गए, 1 महीने बाद he came back after 1 month. He said, ये क्या दे दिया आपने, ये तो मैं पहले से ही जानता था. So in India, you don't have to read Gita to understand Gita. That is for scholars. But I think it's in our DNA, and you can be a Hindu without reading Gita also. I'm not so concerned. I'm not such a radical person. So I don't care what people know or they don't know. I want people to grow. If somebody doesn't know Gita, fine. He will find some Gita in some other form. But if we restrict and we say that, no, you have to read Gita, without reading it, you are not a true Hindu, I think that is also a radical way of thinking. And in the end, I want to say something from the bottom of my soul. Sometimes what happens, we live our lives with some center. We have a center which governs all our decisions, right? Very often, if you are a persecuted person, or you have been an oppressed person, or somebody has done injustice to you, very often we start focusing on the enemy a lot. And we become enemy-centric. And we become reactionary. And we start becoming like them. I think let us not make that mistake. Definitely, and I am saying it as a voice of concern, very often I hear a lot of people, especially outside India, they do this, therefore we should also do that. Not knowing Gita is not a crime, right? But doing good karmas is something everybody is born with. No human being wants to do bad karmas. That's what I think. And in the end, I want to say one thing. Please allow me just 1 minute. I want to say it. You can take this thought across. Okay? Very often people will come and tell you about human rights and India is a fascist country, or, there is a lot of majority-minority conflict and all those things. So people will try to shut you up by talking about minorities all the times. BBC, New York Times, Time, everybody will write about that. Okay, so now these are the same people who say we live in a globalized world. Therefore, we have a right to talk about your issues, right? Why should New York Times or BBC have any right to interfere in Indian issues? They say, but we live in a connected world, in a globalized world. Okay, so let's buy that theory. We live in a globalized world now. We are all one. If we are all one, then this oneness is of 7.5 billion people. In these 7.5 billion people, Hindus are a minority, a very small minority. We are just 14 or 15%. So first of all, now in a globalized world, they should look at us as minorities. Second point, please tell your children and tell everybody you meet, make it a point to tell them, we are the only society in the history of humanity which was enslaved or ruled for 1,000 years by the minorities. First 800 years by Islamic minorities in India, and then next to couple of 100 years by Christian minorities in India. And this is a fact. Yet when we found our freedom, we gave them equal rights, and till date, they have equal rights. which is the greatness of our society. Everybody must know that after being enslaved for 1,000 years, we have been free only for 70 years, 75 years. So when they talk about empathy, we are the first people empathy should be directed towards. Thank you. Thank you very much.